Okay, we're up to the end of Daf Nun Aleph Amid Beis. The Gemara had a machlokes between Rav Shimon and Rav Yehuda. If you have a Kohen Gadol that dies, so the Kohen Gadol brings every morning half of a nisaron as part of his chavitin, and then in the afternoon he brings another half. If he dies in between, and there's no one to take over that day, who pays for the second chavitin that's brought in the afternoon? Because it's normally coming from the Kohen Gadol, but there is no Kohen Gadol, and there's no even replacement Kohen Gadol. So it's a machlokes of Shimon Rabbi Yehuda, whether it comes from the community or whether it comes from his yarshim. Okay. The Gemara had brought down a brisa that said that the brisa had said that the last one. The brisa had said that if a Kohen Gadol dies, it's a takonas chazal that the tzibur pays for it. So we asked the question. I thought it's a pasuk. You're telling me it's a takonas chazal? So he said, it's really a pasuk that the tzibur pays for it. But then Chazal decided, why should the tzibur have to pay? It's too expensive for them to pay. So they made the family do it. But then they realized the family wasn't ended up paying, so they went back. The second takana was to go back to the original deraisa. This is for the chavitin, the afternoon chavitin. It's a carbon mincha brought by the Kohen Gadol. So says the Gemara, now that we mentioned this brisa about certain things that were takanas chazal, that started with a pasuk and then, became a takana and then reversed the takana, we'll mention another one. Another one that's listed in that brisa, in that mishnah, this is a mishnah in Shkolim, al para shaloye moilin ba'afara, that there's no carbon me'ila for misusing the afar of the para aduma. Now, if you misuse the para aduma while it's alive, that there's an Isser Me'ila because it has certain aspects of a carbon. But once it's already killed and turned into ash, there is no Isser Me'ila. You don't bring a carbon for misusing it for personal use. Says the Gemara, so that's a Takanas Chazal. Is that a Takanas Chazal? I thought it's Deraisahi. Isn't it a pasuk that once it turns into Afer, that there's no Isser Me'ila? Titani is the Braisa says Chatos he. The pasuk says chatas, which means that there's an isser me'ila of misusing for personal use a para aduma while it's alive. But he is ba moilin, ba'farei moilin. There's only an isser me'ila when it's alive, not when it's turned to ash. So the kasha is, you're telling me it's takanas chazal. I thought it's a pasuk. So which one is it? They both are saying the same thing. The question is, what's the source for it? So says the Gemara, Amar Rav Ashi, shtei takanas have. There were actually two takanas. Deraisa ba moilin ba'farei moilin. Really, midiraisa, there's no isser me'ila. That starts off. The pasuk says no me'ila. Kivan dechaz dekom zalzala. But Chazal saw that people were not treating the ashes properly because that people were like, there's no isser me'ila anyway. They weren't taking it properly. So what would people do? You have to understand. Think of what would happen nowadays if there was, especially like older babushka type women. You have a paraduma. The ashes are meant to be used to be metaher from tumas meis, right? But there's no Isser Me'ila, so if you misuse it, you're not bringing a carbon. It doesn't mean you're allowed to misuse it, but there's no carbon Me'ila. So people were taking it and putting it on their wounds. If they would have a wound, they would say, take some of the ash, it's good luck, which is not appropriate, obviously. But so Chazal saw that midaraisa there's no carbon Me'ila, but people were misusing it. So what did Chazal do? Gazu ba Me'ila. Chazal made an Isser Me'ila of misusing it. Chazal created an Isser. But the problem was, this is pendulum, right? Every time you machmar on one, you make on the other, make on one, mach on the other. Then you had very, very frumaks, very frum people. Let's say you go to the rabbi and it's unsure whether you need paraduma ash. So what would the rabbi say? Just do it anyway. Just be machmer, right? Let's say he's not sure whether you're tamei, right? Suffolk, be machmer. There were very frum people that said, no. Chazal said there's an Isser Me'ila. I'd rather not use it. I'd rather, even if I'm not sure, I'd rather not. So people went from pendulum. So then Chazal had to make a second takana, removing the first takana to go back to the deraisa, that there's no me'ila. Says the Gemara, keeping the chazal to kaparshim is safek hazos ukmei deraisa. Okay. Another machlokes, and this is somewhat related to our previous discussion. It's not related directly.
So they would be willing to go and they'll be open at deraisa because there's no derabah.
Whatever, I mean, that's just the nature of people. Once they hold there's no deraisa, then, Chazal take it away, then it's fine. Now, we had yesterday a machlokes between Rav Shimon and Rav Yehuda, who pays for the chavitin of the afternoon if the Kohen Gadol dies and there is no Kohen Gadol. So Rav Shimon said that it was paid for by the tzibur, And Rabbi Yehuda says that it's paid for by the Yarshim. Now, the reason why Rav Shimon does not like that the Yarshim should pay for it is because Rav Shimon was chayish. Rav Shimon was chayish that he was concerned that there would be a pshia. Meaning, if you remember in the discussion yesterday, Rav Shimon holds midaraisa it's paid for by the tzibur, but Chazal made it that it should be paid for by the family. But he saw the family wasn't paying for it. So you have machlokes of Shimon Rav Yehuda. Who pays for it? Is it paid for by the community? Meaning, when I say the community, I mean they go to the lishkas hagazis, the machzah shekel, which is collected from everyone, or is it paid for by the yarshim? Machlokes of Shimon Rav Yehuda. The Gemara says a similar machlokes of how do you collect money. So it says the Gemara like this: Parham davar shel tzibar b'sira v'izkachavim. Parham davar shel tzibar means if roiv of Klal Yisrael does an avera and they have to bring a special carbon. Here's the question: who pays for that? So you'll say, well, if it's a communal carbon, it should be from the community. Here's the choice. You have two choices. You can go to Lishkas Hagazis and just take the machzah shekel that was collected during Nisan, or we could do a special crowdfunding campaign for this carbon. Special crowdfunding campaign for this carbon. Or do you just take it from the communal funds? It's a machlokes. Says the Gemara, B'tchila megavin lahen div Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda says we make a special crowdfunding campaign. We do not take from the machzah shekel, but rather we go around and we say, hey guys, you guys just messed up. You have to pay for this carbon. I want everyone to pay for it now. You do a crowdfunding campaign now. Comes Rav Shimon, he says, no, Menachos halishkein. But Rav Shimon says, no, we're not going to have everyone pay for it now. We'll just go to the funds that's already been collected every Nisan and use that funds. So machlokes of Shimon Rav Yehuda. Says the Gemara. Now, by the way, generally the rule is when it's a machlokes of Shimon Yehuda, halachik Rav Yehuda. Right? I think that's the general rule. The halacha is when it's a machlokes of Shimon Rav Yehuda, halacha follows Rav Yehuda. So that should mean the halacha follows Rav Yehuda, new crowdfunding campaign. But here's the issue: Hatanya ibcha. But we have a brisa that says the same names but the reverse shitas. So now I don't know who said what. I have one brisa that says that Rav Yehuda says is paid for by a crowdfunding campaign. Another brisa says the opposite. So I don't know which one is Rav Yehuda because I know we paskin like Rav Yehuda, but I don't know which one Rav Yehuda said. So what do you do if you have dissenting statements, if you have contradictory statements? Well, it's very simple. Look at the last one, the most recent, right? If you have a contradictory statement, look at the most recent. The most recent will be the accurate. So it says the Gemara, Hai minayim machrita. Which is the most accurate? Which is the latest one? The latest one will be the most accurate because maybe the early one he reversed his shita. So basically, we're trying to figure out which one is Rav Yehuda, which is Rav Shimon. So it says the Gemara, I'll tell you very simple. I figured it out. Amru Rabbana Kamei Rav Ashi, Lema Kamei Sachrita. Why? Shemila Rav Yehuda Chaysh L'Pshia. It says the Gemara like this. What did we say yesterday? Was Rav Shimon a fan of the chavitin being paid for by the family? No. Why? Because he said they're not going to pay for it. He was concerned. Rav Shimon yesterday said that he was concerned that they wouldn't end up paying for it. My father's collected. You've fundraised before, and sometimes people make pledges, and you've had this situation. So Rav Shimon said, "I don't want the family to pay for the chavitin because sometimes they're not going to end up paying, either accidental or on purpose." So says the Gemara, it stands to reason if Rav Shimon believes that the family is not going to pay for the chavitin, wouldn't it make sense he'd be against a new crowdfunding campaign? I know they're not the same. But if he's concerned that the family's not going to pay for the chavitin, wouldn't he rather not do a special crowdfunding campaign? Because if he's so concerned that people are not going to do it, wouldn't he be then concerned that the crowdfunding campaign is not going to be successful? So says the Gemara, no. Amr Rav Ashi, I feel tema b'asar sachrita. That's not a raya. Why? Mikachayis Rav Shimon l'pshia b'milsa deles b'kapara b'gava. Milsa disu b'kapara b'gava l'chayis Rav Shimon l'pshia. It's not the same. You knock on the family's door and you say, listen, your dad who just passed away, he brought a daily carb on the chavitin. We want you to pay for it. There's a legitimate chance they may not end up paying for it. But over here, what are we collecting for? We're not just collecting for, Tomchei Shabbos. We're not collecting for Hatzal. You know what we're collecting for? The community sinned and the community needs atonement. So you're calling that guy, hey, you need atonement. We'd like $1. You're going to get the money. Meaning it's easier to collect when they themselves need the atonement. The fact that Rav Shimon was concerned that the chavitin would not be paid for is not the same as the parham davar shel tzibur. The parham davar shel tzibur is a carbon. I call you up and I say, hey, you sinned recently as part of the community. You're going to pay? They'll pay. Therefore, Rav Shimon, it's not clear. So we're back to the original point. We don't know which one is Rav Shimon, which is Rav Yehuda. It says Gemara, "May havitla." So what is the conclusion? So we have a clear brisa. The brisa says, "Amar le Rabba zuti le Ravashi tashmat Tanya es karbani lachmi li shai reach nichay tishmeru lahakaliv ma'adai le Rabba's parham davar shel tzibur siv es kacham sheboin netrumas halishka." They're not no new crowdfunding campaign. It's taken from the communal funds. Divrei Rav Shimon. Clear that Rav Shimon said that, and that's the end of that discussion. Okay. New topic. Not new topic. Back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah said, again, just one thing to remember. The Kohen Gadol every day would bring an isaron of flour. Think of an isaron as 1 pound. He would split it, half in the morning, half in the afternoon. Good. If he dies, and there's no one to replace him, then the afternoon one is brought for either by the tzibor or from the yarshin. But the Mishnah said it's not a half, it's brought as a whole. The whole concept of halves, that's when the Kohen Gadol himself brings it. But when it's brought by a replacement, it's a whole. So no half a pound, a full pound. That's what the Mishnah said. Oh, so that's the Gemara's kasha. Amrav Chibar Abba. Boy Rav Yochanan, Shlema Shachris v'Shlema ben Arboim. Is it a full pound in the morning and a full pound in the afternoon, meaning a full isaron in the morning and a full isaron in the afternoon, meaning a complete double the measurements? Oy Dilma, Shlema Shachris u'Betela ben Arboim. Or perhaps a full isaron in the morning and there is no afternoon chavitin. So now, that you still have that thought. So is it double or is it only one and there is no afternoon chavitin? Correct. No, it's half in the morning, half in the afternoon when the Kohen Gadol does it. But there's no halves when the tzibur brings it. So the choice is full in the morning, full in the afternoon, and you're doubling the shear, or full in the morning and there is no afternoon. They put up a sign and say there is no afternoon chavitin because it was already brought this morning. So the Gemara is going to basically say, is that a viable option that you bring a full isaron in the morning and we skip the afternoon chavitin? So says the Gemara, you're going to skip the afternoon chavitin. Amarava tashma shmini is bechavitin. The chavitin, the Bryce. This is a Mishnah in Tamid. The Mishnah in Tamid lists the duties of the kehanim, and one of the people whose job it was to bring the chavitin to the ramp where the Kohen Gadol would take it. So you're telling me it says that's his job, which means he has to work. But now you're telling me there's a chance no job. What do you mean? The Mishnah says that was his role. Shmini is bechavitin. The 8th kohen would bring the chavitin to the ramp. So, and ve'im isa the betela ben arba'im. And if now you're telling me there's an option that we bring a full isaron in the morning and nothing in the afternoon, then he doesn't have a job. You just made him have no job. Says the Gemara, Hazimnin delay mishkach lashmini bechavitin. So then how could you say that he has a job? It's not true. Heichidami demeis kohen gadol v'limina acher tachtav. If this situation ever arises, which is the kohen gadol dies and we don't have a replacement, you're telling me now that we bring it in the morning and nothing in the afternoon. So the Mishnah said that there's a kohen whose job it is to bring the chavitin to the ramp. You've now made him jobless. But the Mishnah says he has a job. Now, by the way, I don't think it's such a stark kasha, because I'll tell you why. So let me speak out the question again. Let's say, listen, Menachos comes to me with a list of kibudim in the Beis HaMikdash. And the 8th one is the kohen who brings the chavit into the ramp. Okay, I say, yeah, but you said that there's a list. He's going to have a job. He may not have a job. I said, Menachos, why wouldn't he have a job? Because if the kohen gadol were to die and they couldn't find a replacement, then while they're looking for a replacement, they bring one in the morning and no in the afternoon. You know what you would say? When has that happened in 200 years? Like, it's so... Okay, you're right. Maybe talk in that case, he's jobless. The Mishnah says he has a job. The Mishnah is talking about 99% of the circumstances. How rare is it that the Kohen Gadol dies and we can't find a replacement? By the way, there was usually a backup. So you're telling me the Kohen Gadol dies and I can't get a replacement that day? Yeah, taka. In that situation, maybe he doesn't have a job. The Mishnah says he has a job. Well, the Mishnah is talking about the standard operation. No, but the Mishnah is talking about the standard operation. There's always most times we daven in the shul. Sometimes we daven downstairs. Yeah, under extenuating circumstances. I don't know. It's such a kasha. So it says the Gemara, Amru Rabbanu Kamei Rav Yirmiyah Amar Bivavloi Tupshoy. Foolish Babylonians, Mishum Diyasi V'Asa Chashucha, because they live in a dark place in Chutz La'aretz. Amri Shmaita de Mechashchen. They say dark Torahs, meaning. That's your big point. That it has to be that he has a job because the Mishnah says he has a job. The Mishnah is talking about the standard operation situation. So says the Gemara, El Diktani Shvi B'Sailas Chi B'Yayin. You know what the Mishnah also says? One of the Kehanim is to bring the Nesachim. It's to bring the libations. Now let me ask you a question. Let's say the Beis HaMikdash didn't have any libations. You know what they would do? They'd bring it the next day. You don't have to bring it with the animal. You can bring it the next day. So you can say, then he has no job. What's the answer? The answer is, how rare is that? that the Beis Hamikdash can't supply libations? So the answer is, of course, it's possible that they'll be without a job. It's just be very, very rare. So too over here. Is it possible that we don't bring in the afternoon? Yeah, but it's not listed because how rare is that? It says the Gemara, you could bring the libations tomorrow. We're not talking about such rare occurrences. The Mishnah is talking about standard operating procedure. So too over here, it's talking about standard operating procedure. So it's possible maybe Taka doesn't have a job. Maybe you don't bring in the afternoon chavitin. Says the Gemara, this is funny. When Rava heard this back and forth, Rava was upset that they said this Torah over to him because he's like making us seem bad, meaning that who is this talking? This is Rav Yirmiyah heard about this shita from Bavel, and he says, Babylonians, they sit in darkness. So when Rava heard the exchange, Rava's like, why'd they have to tell him that vart? That's not the best vart. We have so much better varts. Like, yeah, you're going to tell him a bad vart. So Rava says, Amar, mibishusan amri kamayu, mitivusan amri kamayu. They only say our bad varts, they don't say our good varts. Meaning Rava's like, Taka, it was a bad vart. I'm upset that Rav Yirmiyah had to hear it. But then Rava said, you know what? I take it back. If the Mishnah says it, what my father said, if the Mishnah says it, that means he has a job. So Hadar Amar Rava, no. Haninami tivusani. Why? Because what was your point? The Mishnah says he has a job. So I said, yeah, the Mishnah is talking about standard operating procedure. Standard operating procedure, not rare occurrences. You know what the Mishnah also says? The Mishnah talks about what happens if you bring the carbon outside of the Beis Hamikdash in the same Mishnah. Is that standard operating procedure to do such an Avera? No. Mishnayos mention wacky cases all the time. And if the Mishnah says you have a job, you have a job. Says the Gemara. And by the way, Rava says, so if he has a job, how do I know he has a job? So says Rava, it's not from the Mishnah. The Pasuk describes the Chavitin as like a Tamid. It says Tamid. You know what Tamid means? Every day, consistently. There's no missing, By the way, it's like a Musa Haskell for like the Shachris after Purim. I thought I'm a headache, but Talmud, you go to Shachris always. It's not something that you skip. Says the Gemara. It's a Talmud. It's always consistent. My Havi Allah. The Gemara says. So what's the conclusion? Amar Nachum bar Yitzchak Tashema Detanya Shleima Shachris Shleima Ben Arbayim. You know what you do? You do double it. You bring a full chavitin in the morning and a full chavitin in the afternoon, but there's no option of skipping. Okay. Rav Yochanan says, Pligiba Abba Yosi ben Doistoi Rabban. Okay. So the chavitin was a daily carbon brought by the Kohen Gadol. He would take an isaron of flour, split it in half in the morning, half in the afternoon. Now that which we know so much. So we know that there's flour, we know the amount of flour. We also know how it was prepared. We saw 2 days ago, it's either baked and fried then baked, or baked, fried, baked. Okay, different opinions. Usually minchas come also with many minchas come with frankincense and oil. Was there frankincense by his chavitin? Yes. The question is how much? Okay. So says the Gemara, please, Abba Yosi ben Dustay Rabbanon. Abba Yosi ben Dustay Omer, Mafar Shlo Shnei Kamotzim Shel Levina. Basically, it's like this. Normally, Levina there's a kaimitz. A kaimitz is a certain scoopful. Okay. Here's the question. The same way you're taking the flour and splitting it, do I split the kaimitz also? Do I do a half a kaimitz of Levina and half a kaimitz in the afternoon of Levina? Or you say, no, we don't split kaimitzes. 2 kaimitzes. That's the question. So I know you split the flour. I'm talking about not where the Kohen Gadol does. Standard Kohen Gadol. I know you split the flour half and half. Hey, how we doing? So I know you split the flour half and half. The only question is, do you also split the kaimitz half and half as well? In progress. Yeah, sorry. So again, the chavitin in the morning, they would split the flour. They would take the isaron, split a half isaron in the morning, half isaron in the afternoon. The question is, what about the levina, the frankincense as well? So normally, a frankincense, the shear is a kaimitz. So the question is the kaimitz split half in the morning, half the afternoon, or do you double it? A kaimitz in the morning and a kaimitz in the afternoon. So says the Gemara. In progress. So the Gemara says the machlokes, what would they do with the levina? So Abba Yosim in the Seimer Mafresh Shnei Kumtzin Shel Levina. He would take 2 kaimitzes. Kaimitz b'shachris, kaimitz shel ben arbaim. One kaimitz in the morning and a kaimitz in the afternoon. Rabbanan Amri, the Rabbanan say, Mafresh la kaimitz echad. He would actually take 1 kaimitz of Levina, Chatzi Kaimis Shachris, Chatzi Kaimis Ben Levina, and he would split it the same way he splits up the flour, he splits up the frankincense as well. But my Kamifli, what is the Machlekes about? So Rabbi Yossi ben Destai Savar, Rabbi Yossi ben Destai, who says that it's 2 kaimtsin, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. He says Lo Yashkich Chatzi Kaimitz Tekarav. We do not find in the Torah splitting the kaimitz. We find splitting the flour. We do not have a source that you split the kaimitz. So it must be a full kaimitz in the morning, a full kaimitz in the afternoon. Rabbanan, who say you split it, they say Lo Yashkich Isarin Debai Shnei Kaimtsin. They counter, well, we don't find that you bring 2 frankincense for 1 isaron ever. So because this is sort of new territory, either you split it or you double it. Boy, Rav Yochanan has a kasha. Here's the shaila. So let's say standard kaimitz is either a half kaimitz in the morning, kaimitz in the afternoon, or a half a kaimitz in the morning, half a kaimitz in the afternoon. That's when the kohen gadol is alive. Kohen gadol shemeis v'lo yamino acher tachtav. Go to the next page. If the kohen gadol dies and they did not find a replacement, so what did we say before? We said that by the flour is doubled. Right? We said that when the kohen gadol dies and there's no replacement, you take a fully saron in the morning and a fully saron in the afternoon of flour. The question is, if the flour is doubled, does that mean the frankincense is also doubled? L'Rabbanan, according to the Rabbanan, huchbal l'vaynasa eloi. Do the Rabbanan say that now normally it's half a kaimitz of levine in the morning, half a kaimitz in the afternoon, but now we double everything. The same way we double the flour, we double the frankincense as well. That's the shaila. Again, according to Abba Yossi ben Destai, it's already a kaimitz in the morning, kaimitz in the afternoon. You're definitely not going to double it. But the Rabbanan, who it's a half in the morning, half in the afternoon, like the flour, if you double the flour, do you double the frankincense as well? A similar shaila. The Gemara speaks out, do we say that because you double the flour, you double the frankincense as well? Or no, the Torah says to double the flour, we don't find that you have to double the frankincense. That's question number 1. Question number 2 is the oil. How much oil is brought? So we said yesterday, it's 3 lugim of oil. The shemen, is the oil doubled? Now this is a shayla according to everybody. If the kohen gadol dies, I know you double the flour. Frankincense, it's unclear what the Rabbanan would say. But what about the oil? Is the oil doubled? Meaning, I have 3 lug of oil. Is it 3 lug in the morning, 3 lug in the afternoon? Or a lug and a half in the morning, a lug and a half in the afternoon? That's the question. Well, the Mishnah lists all the kaimitzes and it says 5. Now, if you believe that if you actually believe that we double the levina, then it's not 5 under such a circumstance, which albeit is a very rare circumstance, which is the kohen gadol dying and not finding a replacement. It's more than 5 kaimitzes. It's actually 7 because you have to double it. Says the Gemara, V'misa zimna meshkechas l'shiva. So the answer is no. It's not a raya. Di'iloi katani. That Mishnah, which is listing the kaimitzes, it's listing the standard operating procedure. It's not talking about the random case where the kohen gadol dies and you can't find a replacement. It's talking about the standard case. Says the Gemara, wait a minute, you're telling me that Mishnah is talking about the standard case? Yasser Rav Papa Karmel Shmaita, Amr Rav Yosef Bar Shmai Rav Papa, Hamaylo Kaimitz B'chutzu Abikatani. The Mishnah over there talks about bringing a kaimitz of flour from the mincha unlawfully outside of the Beis Hamikdash. That's not a standard case. See, the Mishnah is listing all cases, and it says 5, and it doesn't say 7. So you see that they do not double the levina. So my Havi Allah, what is the conclusion regarding the levina? So says the Gemara. The Gemara says like this: Amar of Nachman bar Yitzchak Tashema Detanya. The Brisa speaks it out. The Brisa says, "Kohen gadol shemes v'limin achatach." The kohen gadol dies, and they could not find a replacement. Shlema shachris. You bring a holy saron of flour in the morning, u'shlema ben arbayim, and an saron in the afternoon. Now that's the Rabbanan talking. U'mafer shel shnei kumtzim, and you take 2 kaimitzes of levina. Kaimitz shachris, kaimitz ben arbayim. U'mafer shel shloish lugin. You take 3 lug of oil. Logu mechza shachris, logu mechza ben arboim. So you do 2 frankincense, 2 kinds of frankincense, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, but the oil is split. Money, who authored this brisa? Ilema the Rabbanan. If it's the Rabbanan that you double the levina, Maishna, just 1 minute, mamish 1 minute. Maishna levinasa dehuchbalo, Maisha shmenu deloy huchbalasa. If it's the Rabbanan, then why do you double the levina and not double the oil? El Abba Yossi ben Destai. He must be Abba Yossi ben Destai, who says a levina in the morning, a levina in the afternoon. It's all good. A levina in the morning, a levina in the afternoon. It must be Abba Yossi ben Destai. And you know what he says? The shemen loy hochbala, and you don't double the levina, you don't double the shemen. Umid the shemen la Abba Yossi ben Destai lochbala, levanasa shemas la nami lochbala. And if you don't double it for Abba Yossi ben Destai, which means you take the 3 lug of oil, you don't double it. You split it half, 1 and a half in the morning, 1 and a half in the afternoon. You don't double that. You don't double the frankincense. So to the Rabbanan, you don't double either. Amr Rav Yochanan halacha Abba Yossi ben Destai, and that's the halacha. Now the Gemara just ends off with this. Umiyam Rav Yechon Hachi. Did Rav Yechon actually say that we paskin like Abba Yosef ben Dustoi, that when the Kohen Gadol is alive, he does a whole kaimitz levain in the morning, a whole kaimitz in the afternoon? Vam Rav Yechon halachic Stam Mishnah. Doesn't Rav Yechon always passing like a Stam Mishnah? Utanan. It says in a Stam Mishnah Chamisha kumtzamein, and it does not list a kaimitz levain in the morning, kaimitz in the afternoon. The answer is Amaroyinu Aliba de Rav Yechanan. There's actually a machlekes Amaroyim as to what Rav Yechanan said. Meaning, one said that if you say that he paskin like the Stam Mishnah, then you do not believe that he said we paskin like Avi Yosef and Dustoi. There's two different students who heard dissenting views. Hadran Allah, Atcheles. I will stop it.
Are you going to the bris tomorrow morning?